Hello everyone, this is lecture 8 and this lecture is about single cell protein, which is in short is called SCP. Usually microbes contain high amount of protein, and for this reason they can be used as a source for protein for human food as well as animal feed. In fact, several SCPs already commercially are already commercially cultivated and used as animal feed, also for human supplement, such as for protein supplement. Okay, and many HCPs, they are under study because there are some associated disadvantages with the HCP if we want to use them as human food. Okay, so a study is undergoing to address those disadvantages or overcome those disadvantages. Anyway, this slide, it shows some example, that is a list of microorganisms which are used for HCP production, that is which are used as a protein source. Okay, such as, and these microorganisms belong to, fungi, yeast, algae, bacteria. That means almost all the types of microorganisms, they are used as HCP. So uh, I mean, example of fungi is Aspergillus fumigatus, Aspergillus niger, yeast Saccharomyces cerevisiae, Candida tropicalis, Candida utilis, algae Spirulina species. Okay, for bacteria, Pseudomonas fluorescens, Lactobacillus. Okay, so these are some example. I mean, these are not all. These are some example of microorganisms which are used as SCP, used for SCP production. So this slide, it shows the advantages of disadvantages, and some major advantages and disadvantages regarding with the different microbes, such as for fungi, they are easy to grow and harvest, but disadvantage of fungi is growth rate is low, and also the protein content is low. For algae, they're easy to grow and harvest, and the protein quality is high. Okay. However, there is problems like non-digestible cellulosic cell wall, concentrate heavy metals. I mean, the cell wall of algae is difficult to digest for the animals, and also they contain high amount of metals. Okay, so yeast advantages, their size is large, they have lower nucleic acid content. Okay, and familiarity and acceptability. I mean, actually the yeast has high acceptance as a food source for human. Okay, actually we uh, use yeast, I mean, such as for example for bread production, yeast is a inevitable content, right? I mean, yeast has been used in bread production for since ancient times. Okay, however, yeast also have disadvantages. Digestibility is poor, protein content is low, and growth rate is slow. Now, bacteria. Protein content is high, and the cell wall is easily digestible. However, problem associated with bacteria is nutrient. They have high amount of nucleic acid, size is small, and low density. Okay. Anyway, anyway, if we think about commercial scale production of SCP, they have some advantages. It has some advantages, such as rapid succession generation. I mean, the generation time is slow. That means in short time, large amount of SCP can be produced. For example, for algae, the generation time is 2 to 6 hours. Bacteria, 0.5 to 0.5 to 2 hours. Okay, so very short generation time. uh, SCP can be genetically modified quite easily. Okay, and usually protein content is high, 43 to 85% in the dry mass. Okay? And broad spectrum of original raw material used for the production. I mean, many different kind of raw materials can be used to produce SCP. Okay, and production in continuous cultures, consistent quality, not dependent on climate. Okay, because usually SCP are produced by fermentation. Okay, and as we have we have the opportunity or options to control the environment of fermentation, so it's easy to uh, produce SCP with consistent quality. Okay, and easy regulation of environmental factors such as physical, nutritional, etc. As SCP is produced in fermentation, we have the options to control the different environmental factors. Okay, and this is an example slide of a SCP spirulina. Okay, and this slide shows the composition of different nutrients and amino acid that spirulina, spirulina contains. Okay, the amounts are in per 100 gram of powder. For example, as from this slide, you can see that it contains many different important nutrients and minerals, like such as total protein amount is in spirulina is quite high, 64.6%. Okay, it also has fibers. Amount of calories is also high, 346 in per 100 gram. Okay, and it contains many different kind of vitamins, important minerals and essential amino acids. So that means spirulina is actually a good food source. Okay, however, there are some associated problems if we want to use SCP. Although SCP has many advantages, and usually the SCP they contains high amount of nutrients in them, but still, I mean, and many SCPs are already used as animal feed. But whenever we think about human food, if we want to use SCP as human food, there are some problems. So what kind of problems? Like high content of nucleic acid leading to elevated levels of uric acid. So usually SCPs they contain high amount of nucleic acid, and during nucleic acid digestion, human body produce uric acid, and we know too much uric acid is bad because they can develop kidney stone and gout. Okay, okay. So gout means actually in gout, it's a pain in it. It creates pain in the bone joint. Okay, gout can be a very serious problem if untreated. Okay, it can be fatal, and also possibility for the presence of secondary toxic metabolites. Actually, many SCP they contain some toxic metabolites. Okay, for some SCP the digestibility is poor by the human, and it can stimulate gastro. Some SCP they can stimulate gastrointestinal mucositis. Okay, gastrointestinal mucositis means inflammation in the gastrointestinal tract. Okay, hypersensitivity skin reactions can occur also because of some SCP. Okay, so these are some disadvantages associated with SCP if we want to use them as human food. So if we want to use SCP as human food, these problems must need to be resolved or addressed. Okay, well, now let's talk about mass scale production of algae. Basically, in this case, we'll use spirulina as example. Okay, and algae has a some algae they are already produced commercially and also and used as animal food, also used as human food supplement. Okay, not for human staple food yet, but for food supplement. Okay, so algae actually, production of algae biomass is actually has some benefits like advantages such as algae grow autotrophically and synthesize their food by taking energy from sunlight or artificial light. That means algae can use inorganic materials to produce their own food. Okay, so that means we don't have to provide any organic raw materials for the energy production of. Okay, so I mean they grow autotropically and synthesize their food by taking energy from sunlight or artificial light, use carbon dioxide as their carbon source, and nutrients from carbohydrates present in the growth media. Okay, so these are some examples which are mainly produced commercially currently: chlorella, Synedesmas, spirulina, etc. Okay. Okay, so cultivation of spirulina has some advantages. I mean, mass cultivation of spirulina. Okay, so what are those? I mean, it has some. I mean, in this slide we saw this. I mean, we heard these three names. Okay, so uh, chlorella, uh, uh, Senedesmas, and spirulina. Okay, so among these three, spirulina has some advantages over this other two algae. Okay, I mean in terms of mass production. What are those? So spirulina is a filamentous algae. Okay, so that's why it can be the harvested process is simple and less expensive. Okay, and the filaments of spirulina, they float on water surface due to the presence of gas vehicles, so that they are easy to harvest. Okay, and there is least chance of contamination in growth tanks of spirulina as it grows at high alkaline. Okay, so usually this high alkaline, it prevents many contamination. And uh, heat drying is sufficient for spirulina as it has thin cell wall. I mean, so usually the the algae, the SCP algae, they are dried before sending them to the market. Okay, so I mean they are they can be sold as non-dried form, but the dried form is more easy to handle, and it has a more market acceptability. Okay, and in case of spirulina, drying is easy. Just by heating, drying can be achieved because their cell wall is thin. However, in case of the other two algae, such as chlorella and Senedesmas, okay, heat drying is not. We cannot do heat drying for this one. Spray drying is needed if we want to make powder from them, and spray drying is costly. Okay. Then research showed that spirulina is highly digestive, 85 to 95% due to thin cell wall and low nucleic acid content. It contains only 4% nucleic acid in their cell mass. So it contains high percentage of digestible protein, 62 to 72%, and the amino acid composition. Okay, and their digestion can be comparable with milk and egg. Okay. So these are some advantages of spirulina over the other algae in terms of mass cultivation. Mass cultivation of spirulina, actually not only spirulina, mass cultivation of algae, they are affected by some factors. So these factors such as illumination time, light intensity. I mean they need light for their growth. Okay, so the time for light exposure, the intensity of light, supply of carbon dioxide, because there is carbon dioxide as the carbon source, nitrogen source, ammonium salt or nitrates are the suitable nitrogen source for spirulina, agitation of growing cells to maintain cells in suspension. So all these factors, they affect the yield or production of uh, algal biomass or spirulina biomass. Now, uh, for mass cultivation, what kind of, where we can cultivate spirulina in large amount, that is mass cultivation. Okay, so different so spirulina are cultivated in water bodies, in different water bodies. If we want to cultivate, if for mass cultivation, so different water bodies are commercially used, such as semi-natural lake system. One example is Sosa uh, Texcoco Lake in Mexico and Lake Chad in Africa. Okay, so they have a natural ideal environment for the growth of spirulina. So spirulina are grown there. Okay. However, the quality of spirulina grown there is low due to contamination and pollution by uncontrolled natural factors. So that's why the spirulina SCP cultivated there are not used for human. They are used for fish and animal feed. Okay. Okay, so it was semi-natural lake system, then artificially built cultivation system. Okay, so on the basis of water quality and nutrients status, this system can be, artificially built cultivation system can be clean water based or wastewater based. Okay, so in case of clean water system, this is more expensive because of construction of artificial cultivation farms, and also as clean water have to be supplied, so it become more expensive to manage. So this clean water system, they have shallow raceway ponds circulated with paddle wheels and high quality of nutrients. And for the fast growth in clean water, some additional nutrients such as sodium nitrate or sodium hydrogen carbonate is necessary, and the pH should be maintained above 8.5. Okay, so it was clean water system. Then wastewater system. Okay, so wastewater system can be applicable for country like Bangladesh, where the population density is very high. So that's why lots of waste is generated every day. Okay, so that's why a good wastewater system can be applicable in our country. Okay, so and in this system, the as it's wastewater, it's based on wastewater, so in this system sewers are used for spirulina culture. Okay, so first the waste are added in the digester to settle down the solids, and the liquid effluent is used as a source of nutrients for the cultivation of spirulina. Okay, and we can also add sodium nitrate and sodium hydrogen carbonate to increase the production. Okay, well, when full growth of spirulina is over in this system, different system, it is screened from the culture tank or pond, dewatering and drying for SCP that are used as animal feed and human feed. Okay, okay, so this was the system where we can cultivate spirulina in large amount. Anyway, the spirulina growth, it have certain requirements. When we cultivate spirulina in large quantity, there are some requirements that we should provide for their growth, such as the algal tank. Okay, so circular or rectangular cemented tank are used. So size may be according to convenience and yield needed. It depends on the, how much product we want. So, and the depth of the tank should be about 25 centimeter, and open tank are suitable for tropical and subtropical regions. The light, uh, initially, the light intensity should be low, because if spirulina are exposed to high light, photolysis occur. Okay, that means spirulina cells, they die because of photolysis. pH. So spirulina grows at high pH ranging from 8.5 to 10.5. So the pH must have to be maintained above 8.5 during culture. So agitation of culture is very necessary to get good quality product and yield. So the culture is agitated by, and the commercial cultivation system can be agitated by paddle power, pipe pump, wind power, or rotators. Okay, so and then avoiding contamination. Okay, so preventive measures should be taken to avoid contamination in the algal culture. Okay, because if an algal culture, they can get contaminated by different toxic bacteria, heavy metals, toxin, etc. Okay, so contamination must be avoided, otherwise it will uh, affect on the quality and safety of the product. Okay, now let's try to get some idea about the applications of spirulina. spirulina has many different applications, such as protein supplemented food, because it's contain high amount of protein. Also, it is used as a source of vitamins, amino acid, minerals, good fibers, etc. Okay, especially it can be used as a supplemented food for undernourished children. Okay, as health food. Okay, so it controls obesity, provides instant energy. Okay, for example, spirulina is prescribed as a part of diet for US Olympic team. Then in therapeutic and natural medicines, so it is proven that spirulina can reduce body weight, cholesterol, and stress, and also it can lower the blood sugar level in case of diabetic patients, and because of the presence of beta linolenic acid, it can prevent accumulation of cholesterol in body. uh, because of the beta carotene, it also helps the eyes and skin, and beta carotene is also an anti-cancer substrate. Okay, and it also increases lactation. Then in cosmetics, okay, so as spirulina contain different vitamins, like for example vitamin A and B, they are used in cosmetics. So they have important role in maintaining healthy hair, and many herbal beauty products also contain spirulina. Bioplastics and herbal face cream capable of replacing uh, coal tar eye based coal tar dye based cosmetics. Okay, then as poultry and cattle foods. Okay, so spirulina are excellent convenient source of protein and other nutrients for the poultry and cattle. Okay, so they're actually used uh, as poultry feed. Okay, so well, that was all for this chapter. Thank you for your patience.